All right, all right, and thank you for coming to our session. Just want to set a tone for the beginning because this is a dry run, so we are still polishing the slides. And so at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions or even feedback suggestions, please let us know. And it's my honor to introduce my co-presenters, Dr. Hye-won Lee, who is also an expert in IELTS research, also in speaking assessment, validity, and integrated learning assessment. And Yasin is an expert in spoken dialogue system and AI-assisted speaking assessment. So as you can see in the first slide, the date is not right. So the official presentation will be 2 weeks later. So this is also a hybrid conference organized by Iowa State University, and it's a free registration, so everyone can go. I highly recommend everyone to attend that conference. And this is where we are graduating from, so it's a sort of a homecoming event for us. So this is the overview of the presentation, and we'll kick off the presentation with setting the tone, the climate about using generative AI in the world in education sector. Then we'll break this, the presentation into 3 separate sections. So I'll be talking about automated scoring, and Yasin will be talking about conversational AI or spoken dialogue systems, and Hye-won will be talking about integrated learning assessment. And at the end of the presentation, we will highlight or identify some research priorities from each area and also giving us our personal reflections in concluding remarks. Okay, so this is the sort of climate of the impact of generative AI adoption on the US market, but I think it reflects the general climate in the world. On the left side, you can see sort of this is the adoption of generative AI between junior jobs and senior jobs. So you can see the red lines, the dashed lines, it's about the time when ChatGPT was introduced on the 30th of November 2022. And you can see on the junior side, there's a big decline of junior level hiring. And with the solid line is the companies which adopted generative AI according to their job ad. The dashed line is the companies who are still using traditional workers, not adopting generative AI. So the big trend is that there's a decline of hiring at the junior level posts, and there's a bigger decline with companies who adopt generative AI. On the right side, you can see senior level job remain consistent. There's no impact of the introduction of large language models or ChatGPT on senior level hiring. You can see a lot of junior level jobs is gradually being replaced by generative AI, the use of technology to facilitate their work. And this is the second page from the same study. You can see that this is about the number of companies who publish job ads which are relevant to use of generative AI. So around November 30th, 2022, there's a big increase of job posts of companies who are advertising jobs relevant to the use of ChatGPT, generative AI. So you can tell that there's a big impact of the introduction of the technology on hiring on job market, and in turn will affect education as well, curriculum design as well, to meet up with the market needs. Okay, let's zoom down a little bit to the education sector, particularly on applied linguistics, which is relevant to us. So I'd like to show a few views from leading researchers in the field. Carol Chappell, in a recent publication, mentioned that generative AI is a powerful game changer in the field of applied linguistics. And also, Xun Yan and his student, Xun Yan, the chief editor of Language Testing, and they published a paper recently saying that recent breakthrough in generative AI have shaken the field of language assessment in unprecedented ways. And we're going to unfold these ideas later. In what ways? And also, Nahal from Krella and also Evelina from Cambridge, they wrote a white paper regarding teachers' perceptions on generative AI. They said generative AI has emerged as a disruptive force in society, bringing substantial changes to language education. And you can see that impact is so huge, it's almost landscape changing on our field. And also, we saw emerging standards and guidance being published by authorities. UNESCO published the guidance for generative AI in education research, and also ITC and ATP, which stand for International Testing Commission and Association of Test Publishers. They also mentioned the ethical use of generative AI in test development and validation. And OFCAL is a regulatory body in the UK who regulate high-stakes assessment like IELTS, Cambridge English qualifications. They also shared with us their approach to regulating the use of AI in the qualification sector. And also Department of Education in the UK also has a policy paper on responsible use of generative AI in education. So you can see that everyone is working toward that direction, but there's a strong need from language teachers and learners and assessment practitioners on generative AI literacy. And this is a quote from Xiaoming Shi, and she said, the meteoric rise of ChatGPT and sweeping application in almost every sector have left us in awe, scrambling to catch up by developing theories and best practice. So actually, theories and best practices are lagging behind the evolution of technology. We're struggling to catch up. We don't know what to do in many aspects. And also, Kern, in a recent paper in Modern Language Journal, mentioned that our profession is truly at an inflection point, and we urgently need to identify what technology offers that is positive for language education, rethink how we organize our teaching in light of technology's affordances, and then be clear about what technology cannot do. I highlight cannot do because we know little about the limitations of generative AI. A lot of news media, their voices are so positive, and actually, those policymakers are not truly informed by the research regarding the limitations of generative AI. And this is sort of reflection I had by meeting with off-core research people. They are gradually shaping up their policy by drawing on research from the field. So we are co-constructing these policies with them. So the statement of problem for our presentation that these guidelines and principles of good practice on generative AI seems to be addressing only high-level theoretical notions about security, safety, fairness, and justice that do not have clear practical utility. And the affordances and limitations of generative AI in specific applied areas of language education are still underexplored. And we have to confess that we are also exploring. So we're going to divide our presentation into 3 sub-areas, which are relevant to the use of generative AI. But we have to remain humble because this field is moving forward very quickly, and we are trying to catch up as well. So we are exploring. So this is only reflecting our current knowledge, but we are updating our knowledge all the time. So the first area is about using generative AI in automated scoring of L2 speech and writing. And first, to give a definition of what automated scoring is, it's a system trained to score complex constructed responses, usually open-ended response for writing and speaking, and predict scores the human examiners would give. And some auto scorers can indicate confidence in score prediction. So low confidence scores are remarked by humans, adopt the hybrid marking model. And the auto marker is also required to flag unusual aberrant responses coming from malpractice. And also the benefits of automated scoring is self-explanatory, right? It's quite efficient, leading to cost reduction for a large-scale assessment, mitigating examiner shortage, and supporting on-demand testing. So this is the traditional architecture of machine learning-based auto markers. You can see text and speech are input for the auto marker, and it will generate score, indicating confidence, how confident the score prediction is, and indicating whether there's any malpractice possibilities in response. And what we do is we use labeled data, usually human marks and learner responses to train the system. Whatever your model uses, it could be a deep learning model, can be a feature-based regression model. But the problem is that data scarcity. We don't have that much high-quality data to train an auto marker or those scorer. Only large test organizations like, for example, Cambridge, ETS, have the luxury of large-scale data for training their auto marker or auto scorer. The problem that large language models solve is that it can be we can use large language model to generate synthetic data for training purpose, since we don't have that much real data. So this is a study reported by Jing Wei and Alistair Van Moore when they were still working at Mathematics. And the context of the auto-mark training is for the British Council primary English test, so for young learner assessment. So they use GPT to generate synthetic data, and they train the auto score on synthetic data and also on real data, and make a comparison on their performances or score accuracy. So this is what we do. You can see on the right side of the prompts, they pick a random score, and they say, okay, you're an English language learner taking English writing assessment. Here's a prompt for an essay, and you insert the prompt and construct a response that will score a particular score that you pick. And the rubric state that a score of a particular score meets the following criteria, etc. So the rubric is being fed into large language model to generate such a response. And the problem that the large language model do not understand learner language, so they always produce native-like language. So they have additional step to corrupt the response. So they tell the large language model to introduce some spelling and grammatical errors that are typically made by English language learners into the essay. So that's what they do to simulate learner language using GPT. So this is what they found. So you can see this table. On the left side is the model performance on real responses. On the right side is model performance on the synthetic response generated by GPT. The correlation, the higher the better. So you can see correlation slightly lower from the synthetic responses. And the mean absolute error is the amount of error in the score, in the predicted score. The smaller, the better. And actually, the model is not really performing well in terms of reducing the error in the score. The model trained on synthetic data has a much larger error term. It applies to mean error as well. So what does that mean? So that authors interpret the finding this way. They said the synthetic data do not really look like real data. They don't look like learner language. The GPT cannot produce learner language. And also, there's no way that GPT can indicate a confidence in their score prediction. So which means there could be low confidence scores in a traditional machine learning-based automarker, but GPT cannot tell. And also, there might be inherent bias in the GPT model that is too deep to detect, so which lead to errors in score prediction. Okay, so this is one approach. We keep the traditional machine learning training method, but using synthetic data to train a model to solve the data scarcity issue. And another approach is to prompt a large language model to do score prediction directly by skipping the traditional machine learning approach. So again, essay and audio on the left side, and you just write some prompts to prompt the large language model to predict the score. What we need to do is to write a prompt and also putting the assessment criteria. It could be the rating criteria, descriptors for CFA levels, can-do statements, etc. Basically telling large language models what does each score mean, what kind of feature you need to look for in a learner language. So that's the second approach. This is a study done by Stefano Bano from Cambridge University and his colleagues, and they use GPT to predict both holistic score and analytical scores on LT writing from Cambridge English Writing Improved test. And they create a large number of analytical scores on different criteria under linguistic and pragmatic competence. This is an example. And they said, giving this essay and ask the GPT to predict the score. And also, they use a machine learning-based model to give a holistic score. So if you know this holistic score, what analytical score you'll be giving to the essay. Okay, and you can see the prompt and option A, B, C, and D, E, and F. This stand for CFR level from A1 to C2, and with the descriptors. So the model is asked to pick one of the answer for grammatical accuracy based on the features in the learner language. So you can see this is the finding of the study. The baseline machine learning-based auto scorer has a correlation about 0.86, but the zero-shot GPT-4 without any further training, just basically feeding the prompts and feeding the learner production, the essays, leads to a Spearman correlation of 0.797, which is a quite significant drop in terms of correlation. And also, they also look at the analytical scores accuracy, but there's some drawback in this study because they didn't have any ground truth from human markers regarding analytical scores. There's no human analytical score in the study. But they find alternative, which is use the automated features on some linguistic perspective, like grammatical error rate, unique difficult words, to predict those analytical scores generated by large language models. They found some correlation, but the correlation quite low actually on some categories. You can see there's some flaws in the study, so we don't know, we don't have the ultimate knowledge regarding accuracy of analytical scores. But even with those approximate measures, the correlation is relatively low, which means the large language models may not be competent enough to predict analytical scores. Okay, and this is a study regarding using large language models to predict speaking performance. And in the same way, you're feeding the prompt, and it is called Qwen2 audio, which is a large-scale audio language model. So there's no separate ASR, no speech recognition, just feeding to the audio language model directly with the audio data, and the language model will produce a score as a result of that. And you can see that the performance for a baseline model, if you can follow my cursor, RMSE is the error term. This is the correlation. The higher, the better. The zero shot without any further training, actually the IMC is very high, and the Pearson correlation is significantly lower than baseline model right here. But for the pre-trained model, so they pre-trained the Qwen2 audio with one part of the test. And so it's a subset of data to pre-train the model. Basically, it's a supervised training, telling the model the scoring criteria, also telling the model some human marks given on these responses. And you can see that MSC is even lower than the baseline model, and the Pearson correlation is higher than the baseline model. So which shows some promises for training, for using a large language model based audio model to predict speaking performance, speaking scores given by humans. Okay, so a summary of benefits and challenges. So for benefits of large language model-based approach to automated scoring, include highly accessible to non-experts. So you don't have to be a machine learning expert to use to train the model. You just need to learn to prompt the model to do the things. And also there's a reduced demand on high quality training data. And you can see even zero shot or few shots prompting can result in quite not perfect, but quite satisfactory score prediction accuracy. And also you use a single model for predicting analytical scores. So traditional machine learning model only produce a holistic score, but large language models can use one model to predict performance in several sub-criteria, sub-dimensions of our proficiency, which is quite neat, although the accuracy is not substandard right now. And there's some increased explainability to some extent, because you are telling the large language model with the rating criteria, right? And also you are breaking the score into analytical dimensions, which actually unfold the meaning of automated scores, which is better than a deep learning model, which give you a holistic score without any further explanation. But also there are some challenges, because large language models cannot indicate confidence or model error. So you don't know when it's right, when it's wrong. And also, we can tell that large language model has limited knowledge on L2, learner language. And there could be unknown bias in large language models we don't know. And large language models can be susceptible to adversarial attacks or malpractice. So adversarial attacks are malicious techniques that sort of used to craft data, craft input to cause misbehaviors and mispredictions in large language models. This is possible, and we have seen research which can do that. And also, the large language model is constantly evolving, so which means the prompts for particular version of the model may not work for the next version of the model. So this is really moving fast, quickly. And finally, it's very difficult to discuss the ownership of the auto scorer, because traditionally a machine learning model is developed by a testing program, a testing organization. But large language models belong to, for example, OpenAI. If it makes mistakes in score prediction, who is accountable for wrong score results? So there's some ethical issues around using large language models for automated scoring. Okay, so this is about scoring for speaking and writing, and speaking here is totally monologic. And I'm going to pass on to Yasin to talk about assessing conversational speech using spoken dialogue systems that are powered by generative AI.
Thank you, Jing. In this part of our talk today, I'm going to just discuss one recent technology, like Jing said, that has become an kind of interest to researchers like us, which is spoken dialogue systems. Researchers seem to explore this technology as a possible alternative to face-to-face interviews to especially assess dialogic communication skills. So what are these systems? That's I'm just going to give you a very high-level description of these systems. So they're basically essentially just computer-based applications that can interact with humans using natural language. Like it can ask questions, it can respond to what the speaker says, it can maintain a flow of conversation, much like a human interlocutor. But what's really exciting here is the construct expansion that spoken dialogue systems makes possible. So instead of limiting speaking assessments to monologic tasks, these systems allow for real-time interaction that might simulate real-world conversations. And these systems can also elicit a broader kind of range of instructional competence, things like turn-taking, clarification, negotiation of meaning. And another major advantage is practicality. What we mean by that is because there is no human interlocutor involved, these systems can operate 24/7, test large numbers of candidates, and help us kind of ensure consistent conditions across various administrations, which brings us to the another advantage, which is standardization. So we know that even highly trained examiners can struggle to deliver speaking tests consistently, but we know that large language models are not tired easily. So in many ways, these systems offers an appealing alternative for assessing dialogic speech. And when we look at how large language models can help spoken dialogue systems, it becomes interesting, and also it kind of makes it more controversial as well. With the integration of these kind of large language models, we are moving into a new generation of dialogue systems, kind of systems that are far more flexible, far more adaptive, and potentially more context aware. So these systems can, first of all, function as virtual interlocutors in many task-based interactions. Instead of delivering fixed prompts and predetermined responses, they can engage test takers in a more dynamic way that might help us feel more conversational and more authentic. And they can also simulate rich and contextualized scenarios that mirror real-world language use, like, again, term management, repairing, or negotiation of meaning. And another powerful kind of capability is the delivery of corrective feedback and more adaptive support, especially in learning environments. So these large language model powered systems can respond more intelligently to learner errors and can potentially adjust the level of kind of scaffolding in real time. So we're kind of witnessing a transition from kind of rule-based, kind of predetermined responses to large language model-driven models, which hopefully will enable these kind of conversations that we're having with AI more natural, more coherent, and more closer to human-human communication. So it seems that these developments kind of regarding LLMs can make language assessment not just authentic but more responsive. But how do they work? That's the question. So I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but just to briefly looking at how these systems work. So just a typical dialogue system follow this cycle. You might have seen this in different presentations maybe, but it starts with when a test taker or a learner speaks, right? That audio input is processed through speech recognition and understanding components, which converts the speech signal into text and interpret its meaning. And then that output, that meaning, goes to the dialogue management component, which is the brain of the system, which also decides what to say next based on the user input, right? And also based on how you design the system. And then the system moves to the speech generation, which is kind of generates a response as a text, and then synthesize it into a speech output, and then completes the interaction loop by sending the audio back to the test taker, and it all happens in milliseconds. So what's really important here is the middle component, which is the dialogue management. Like I said, traditionally this part has been kind of rule-based, and which means the system followed pre-scripted and kind of decision trees and keyword triggers. You know, if you catch this word, say this. If you don't, say those. And that works fine for very constrained tasks, but it sometimes leads to kind of more unnatural conversations. When it depends on the task designer, of course. More recently, though, we've seen this shift, like I said, toward large language model-driven dialogue management, where LLMs are used to generate response dynamically, which hopefully makes conversations much more fluid and contextually appropriate. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's how it works. But what is the value of these systems for us, for learning and for assessment? So on the learning side, the benefits are clear. For learners and teachers, these systems provide safe opportunities to practice and develop communication skills without fear of embarrassment. So that's one issue that learners are having, right, when they try to speak, that speaking anxiety. So they can offer a variety of feedback, not just on correctness, but also on fluency and interaction and pronunciation, which in turn helps to build, learners' confidence, because they can be adaptive. They can also make it possible to kind of personalize the learning journey in a way that is very difficult to achieve in a traditional classroom. Institutions also gain here. They can design innovative new courses, attract more learners, and more importantly, they can demonstrate students' readiness in a more kind of tangible way. On the assessment side, these dialogue systems allow test takers, test providers to simulate authentic real-life social interactions, like I said, something that is this has always been a challenge in large-scale testing environments. They bring a higher degree of standardization, which supports fairness, while kind of still balancing the communicative richness we want kind of from these operational tests. For institutions, these systems are often kind of less resource heavy and less logistically complex than face-to-face exams. And they are easier to kind of scale up, again, compared to face-to-face tests, which is critical when you think about global kind of demand. But there are still limitations. So current systems sometimes, maybe often, dominate the conversation instead of letting the learner lead, right? So the prompting should be very carefully designed. They may struggle to adapt to learners' level, produce inconsistent responses, or sometimes they may misinterpret accents. So these are kind of active research areas and also development areas. But still, even with those challenges, there is potential value there, right? So I'm gonna show you a demo of a LLM-powered spoken dialogue system that we have designed for a learning environment. So this is a speaking kind of practice tool where test takers log in and then pick a topic, and then among those topics, the system populates a range of topics, a variety of topics. For example, if you click one more time, Jing, you will see the range of topics that is available.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. So in this one, I picked chat about a topic, and then I think I picked chat about cooking. So you're going to listen to me interacting with AI about making pasta. So let's listen. We can't hear it, Jing, I guess.
Okay.
Hi there. Let's talk about cooking. What's your favorite dish to cook?
I like cooking pasta.
That's great. Pasta is delicious. What type of pasta do you like to make?
I like pasta with pesto sauce.
Yum. Do you make your own pasta sauce or do you buy it?
Yeah, I make my own pasta sauce.
Nice. Making your own sauce is fun. What ingredients do you use for your pasta sauce?
I make pesto with basil, nuts, garlic, olive oil, and Parmesan cheese.
That sounds amazing. Pesto is so tasty.
Okay, so on the next page, when the test taker or learner finishes the conversation, they have two options. Either they can go back to the conversation again, and then they can just keep talking from wherever they left, or they can see some kind of feedback, like on vocabulary use or kind of pronunciation. So this was a kind of a brief demo of how Gen AI can be used for speaking practice purposes. You can imagine the same technology being used for assessment purposes as well. But in the next section, Hye-won will talk about how to integrate learning and assessment kind of together using such technologies, including this one. I'm handing it over to Hye-won.
Thank you, Yasin. So the third area we'll focus on today is the use of Gen AI in integrated learning and assessment, or ILA in short. And this is where teaching, learning, and evaluation intersect. So rather than seeing assessment as a separate event, ILA captures evidence of learning as it happens. And this is where Gen AI has some transformative potential. So since ChatGPT is released in 2022, we've seen an explosion of Gen AI use across education. So AI is no longer just a tool, but it's becoming as a new literacy. And ministries and universities are already piloting AI-assisted pedagogy and evaluation in a strategic manner. For instance, Perkins et al. 2024 introduced the Artificial Intelligence Assessment Scale, or AIAS in short. And they found out that the scale actually sustains it shows that AI can reduce academic misconduct and improve engagement and also sustain integrity. In the context of English language teaching specifically, Han et al. 2023 demonstrate that in EFI writing, AI can work well, but only when teachers remain central. So teachers still guide students drafting and revising rather than being replaced by AI. And these studies mark a shift from reactive to strategic AI use. So integrated learning and assessment brings instruction and evaluation together. And instead of teaching first and assessing later, students learn through assessment tasks. So assessment tasks become learning tasks. And Jones and Saville 2016 describe ILA, or in their term, learning-oriented assessment, as continuous continuous, feedback-driven, and authentic, so aligning assessment closely with real-life communication in the learning context. And the figure you see at the bottom of this slide describes this integrative cycle well. So at the classroom or the micro level within this framework, we start with a task that elicits real interaction, and the teachers observes what learners actually do and may make some quick notes, including some mental notes, as the interaction unfolds. And learners then get feedback from the teacher and or their peers, and the task adjusts as needed. So repeated, extended, or add scaffolds, etc. And alongside that, the teacher captures a simple structural record of each student's performance, and those records are then interpreted against some sort of common frame, let's say the CFR, and rolled up into periodic summative checks on progress towards the bigger curriculum goals. And with GenAI, this integration becomes even more dynamic, so tasks can adjust in real time more easily, and feedback can be given more frequently and systematically as students learn. So what does this look like in practice then? GenAI offers 4 key affordances. So first, personalization, so adaptive feedback and prompts that are tailored to each learner's profile. And secondly, scaffolding, so models and hints that support learners. So for instance, in writing, at the stage of planning, drafting, or revising, like a strengths shown in the study that I introduced earlier. And third, engagement and autonomy. So this takes, let's take speaking as an example. So interactive dialogue, as demonstrated by Yasin earlier, keeps learners motivated and reflective. And fourth, inclusivity. So multilingual and culturally responsive interactions can be powered by GenAI, which will lower barriers for diverse learners. So in practice, for instance, AI writing tutors such as Write and Improve that Jing introduced earlier can support revising strategies. And speaking bots can simulate real-time conversations, as we saw in Yasin's demo earlier, powered by real-time feedback. And reading tasks can adapt question difficulty automatically, as shown in several studies, and I just quoted one of them on the slide for your reference. And just to put this into more context, I just brought one specific example, which was published in Language Teaching Research. And this is a 10-week experiment with adult learners in the intermediate level Iranian EFL writing classes. And they experimented a structured GenAI-based writing instruction protocol, which included 3 stages: planning, instruction, and assessment. They did not explicitly map these stages onto this framework of ILA, but I sort of mapped those into this figure so that you can see how this traditional way of integrating learning and assessment can be powered by GenAI in various stages in the cycle. So first of all, in the planning stage, teachers utilized and they used ChatGPT for the software program in this experiment in generating a list of materials and samples that fit the procedure of each session, and also design a wide range of writing tasks which aim different types of writing. So in this stage, GenAI was used as a teaching assistant that the teacher can rely on, and also get some ideas in brainstorming and preparing some tasks for the students to interact with in the instruction stage. And next, in the instruction phase, students were asked to interact with ChatGPT as a chatbot in each session, but with some pre-instruction on the guidance on how best to use ChatGPT to help their writing process and also product. And they work on their writing tasks under the supervision of ChatGPT at home, and both ChatGPT and teacher in the classroom. So ChatGPT amplified the range and quality of the feedback provided to the learners, and the learners' writing output was used as the ChatGPT input, and the chatbot was asked to provide some detailed analysis and feedback on the working writing outputs from the students. And afterwards, teachers discussed with the students those positive and negative aspects of the learner's writing based on the suggestions outlined by ChatGPT. And in the assessment phase, output analysis and also the monitor features of student writing that were generated by ChatGPT was looked into in consideration of designing writing tasks for the following session in this cycle. So in this context, the GenAI powered writing instruction and assessment significantly. And this instruction was helping to increase teachers' self-efficacy and also improve learner writing with some gains persisting at delayed post-test. But these promises come with some caution. First, blurred boundaries between learning and assessment and pedagogical dependence on AI may arise concerns about fairness. So in AI-mediated tasks, formative help, such as AI reformulations or hints, can flow directly into graded work and making it unclear how much performance reflects the learner versus the tool. And to keep decisions valid and comparable, we need clear models, unpermissible AI support, consistent conditions, and transparent disclosure of AI involvement. And secondly, there is the risk of potential construct drift. So if AI changes the task too freely, and what are we actually measuring? And third, equity and access remain critical as well. So not all learners have equal technological literacy or access to AI tools. At the same time, data ethics should also be a concern, as large volumes of data are collected while learners engage with these AI tools. And finally, we must remain and also maintain theoretical rigor in pedagogy, grounded in strong theories of SLA, pedagogy, and related fields. And this ensures that AI used for valid, pedagogically sound reasons, not simply for the sake of applying it. So responsible integration means keeping people, not technology, at the center. And we can think of this as a partnership between educators, learners, and AI systems. So educators guide task design and interpret feedback. Learners engage critically using AI output as a scaffold, not as substitute. And AI systems provide data and support, but must be transparent, explainable, and accountable. So in short, human in command and AI in service. And I guess now we are moving on to the research priority part. So back to Jing.
Yeah, thank you, Hye-won and Yasin. I think we had a quick review of the up-to-date research using generative AI in each applied area, and we mentioned a lot of challenges. So these challenges actually stimulated research on these topics. So these are some research priorities for large language model-based automated scoring. The major concern is about reliability and accuracy, especially on potential bias in automated scores. So we do need to conduct research on large language model-based scores across L1 groups and across proficiency levels. A single number of correlation is not sort of revealing that much information. And also we need to zoom into the accuracy of the analytical scores given by the large language models because it's concerned with the explainability or interpretability of the automated scores. And the second part is about prompting large language models to gain knowledge of their errors and to be able to indicate confidence in their score prediction. A model that cannot learn its error, cannot indicate its error, is not really applicable to high-stakes assessment because for those low confidence scores or error-prone scores, we'll likely need to remark it with a human examiner. If the auto marker cannot indicate that, then there's no way we can loop human into the marking process. The third part is similar to a machine learning-based auto marker or auto scorer about malpractice detection. And I think there's an even huger risk for adversarial attack or malpractice on large language model-based auto scorer. The final bit is about the explainability. So the question is, can large language models sensibly explain the rationales behind the scores they give? This is not possible for a deep learning-based model or even regression-based model. So the question is whether large language models can push us beyond the current limit. Okay, to you, Yasin. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, regarding GenAI-powered dialogue systems, we have seen some exciting possibilities for assessing dialogue speaking, but there are also significant challenges which point to research priorities for all of us who are interested in this specific area. First, there are questions around cognitive validity. We need to make sure that the task demands in these interactions, AI-mediated interactions, actually align with the kinds of cognitive and interactional processes that might occur in real human-human communication. So, for example, our test takers engaging in similar planning and monitoring and repair strategies when interacting with an AI, as they would with a human interlocutor. Next, context validity, which raises concerns about the authenticity of AI-mediated communication. So the dialogue may feel more constrained or artificial compared to human exchanges, which could affect both task performance and construct representation. Also, we have to consider how individual differences, such as first language background, different accents, or digital familiarity influence interaction patterns with the system. For example, learners who are more comfortable with AI technology, they might have an advantage, which is kind of unrelated to their actual speaking competence. So we need to investigate that as well. And there are also research areas around scoring validity. For example, our existing human-based rating scales were developed for evaluating performance in human-human interactions, right? But when the interlocutor is an AI, some of those descriptors may not apply. So we may need new scales or descriptors to capture what effective communication means in these AI-mediated dialogues. And finally, consequential validity concerns the the broader impact of using these systems in assessment. We need to think critically about fairness and washback, specifically how learners perceive the use of AI in interlocutors and how that might shape their language learning processes and test preparation or their anxiety levels. So if the interaction feels inauthentic or overly mechanical, it could undermine test taker engagement and even the perceived validity of the assessment. So all these issues seem to be complex and also ongoing research agenda for all of us.
Okay, then lastly, the research priorities that can guide us forward in the areas of GenAI-powered ILA. So 4 priorities stand out. So first, pedagogical design and SLA grounding. So how AI-mediated ILA tasks align with learning theories. And secondly, validity and construct evolution. So what are we measuring? How may GenAI alter constructs? And thirdly, ethics, equity, and access. So ensuring transparency and fairness. And lastly, learning impact and transfer. So tracking long-term gains and how learners transfer AI support skills into new contexts. So these are the areas that we'd like to focus on if you are interested in this area of applying GenAI in integrated learning and assessment.
Okay, so we will end up our presentation with one single sentence from each of us on each area, and so personal reflection. So my feeling that generative AI may have made ultimate scoring more accessible to teachers and practitioners. So everyone can prompt a large language model to predict scores on writing and speaking. But obviously, substantial research is still needed before large language models can be responsibly applied to high-stake language tests for the reasons I mentioned before.
And my feeling is that the key question is not whether GenAI will transform speaking assessment or not, because it's gonna do that inevitably. But how we can guide its development responsibly to enhance validity and fairness is the main question.
And for me, the bar has been lowered thanks to the advance of technology, so it can be accessible to the even non-specialists as well. And that's why GenAI is increasingly being implemented in integrated learning and assessment contexts. But we must not lose sight of the depth of our pedagogical understandings or the theory-informed best practices established prior to the era of GenAI. So we should continue to implement it in a principled manner as we have to date. And that's all we have.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think these are the selected references, and thank you all. And we will have a final version in 2 weeks.